All right, so no moves from the Toronto Blue Jays. They do pick up the win, which is huge. That game, I think, almost gave me a heart attack. 1 day left before the trade deadline comes to a close. I'm getting a little nervous.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. As always, I'm Brayden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5 Iwasko, Carter First too, as well on our main channel at Locked On Jays. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. A lot of information could be coming down. The day of you guys listening this could be huge with the Toronto Blue Jays still looking to make a couple moves. So hit that bell notification so you guys get notified as well whenever our videos go live. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Make sure you guys stay up to date on all your Blue Jays information right here on Locked On Blue Jays. You get your podcast, your shorts, your live streams, the videos, the whole ordeal. Lots to get into. Obviously, a bunch of guys came off the board yesterday as you guys are listening to this. So we're going to talk about some of those guys. Some of those guys the Blue Jays were probably interested in. Some of the guys that, me and Carter were interested in talking about earlier in the week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it may have been. We got to talk about the win because it was much needed. I think it sort of helps the mentality, even though maybe it wasn't a game one how you wanted it to be. And then we'll get into the final day of the trade deadline, what the Blue Jays still can do, who's still left available. We'll talk about all that in the final segment as well. So we're going to sort of split up the trade deadline talk, so it's not just straight trade deadline for 30 minutes. We'll do the first segment and the third segment both in the trade deadline. We'll save that middle one for the actual game that happened. Carter, my man, a lot of pieces went off the board. I guess are you as shocked as I am with the number of trades? Like I thought at this point there would be more, and maybe that's just coming from a standpoint of being a Blue Jays fan and that I've wanted them to do some, but it just really doesn't feel like that crazy of a deadline quite yet.
I think a lot of that feeling is just because a lot of the big pieces haven't necessarily come off the board yet. The Eugenio Suarez hasn't come off the board. Maybe the Joe Ryan that some people are hoping for. Like some people have Steven Kwan, who has been linked to the Toronto Blue Jays. So we have seen some bullpen arms start to come off the board. That Phillies trade for Johan Duran, probably the biggest one of this trade deadline so far. A very steep price for them to pay, though. The Phillies get a fireballer. Obviously, Duran, very good in the playoffs, throws 100, 101 very consistently. So it's going to be an absolute dog for them in the high leverage situations in that bullpen. But they give up 2 top 100 MLB prospects, and Duran has 2 more years of arbitration after this season, so they get control of him for 2.5 years. That's 2 top prospects. For the people that are thinking, like, hey, maybe the Toronto Blue Jays can get Joe Ryan. If you're even thinking about the Joe Ryan talks, see ya Arjun, see ya Trey Savage, probably something else thrown in there as well. So that is something you're going to have to consider. Is Joe Ryan to be a massive piece if that trade happened? I don't think you can really be upset about it because Joe Ryan would be probably your at minimum game 2 starter in a playoff series. But that's what it would have to take for a player that caliber. So if you're looking for a big key player for the Toronto Blue Jays to get here, one of the superstars that are available at this trade deadline, the market is not cheap right now, and it's only going to get worse as we continue to see trades and players fly off the board, and then the selection is going to get more and more minuscule, and that is where you're going to have to compete with a lot of teams down the stretch.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a little bit of my problem right now with the Blue Jays not making as many moves yet as I thought. There's been 1 move made, and at some point, guys are going to come flying off the board, and if you're just waiting to pull the trigger, maybe you don't get your guy. I just want to go through a quick rundown of some of the players traded, where they went, giving you guys an up-to-date information on where some of these players go. So the Mets acquired Tyler Rogers from the Giants. There was a report out that Justin Verlander is now available for trade as well. I don't know who would want that guy, but he's available. The Nationals trading Soroka to the Cubs. Obviously, Carter brought up Duran being traded. The Cardinals trade Helsley to the Mets. That was a 3 prospect trade as well. Another big one coming off the board, a guy that a lot of people had on their lists. And just another one here. The Reds are finalizing a trade for the Rays, Zach Lytle as well. So another guy that's sort of, in the mix here, I guess. And some of these pieces are guys that we expected to be traded. A guy that I really liked was Helsley. I thought that he would be a great fit for this Blue Jays team. But it was a lot to give up. There are teams that are spending a lot here, and maybe the Blue Jays have their sights set on other places. We'll take a look at that in the final segment. But, Carter, a lot of the relievers that we talked about here are now gone. I mean, we still have your boys left on the board from Pittsburgh that you want. And maybe that's where we have to start turning our attention at this point.
There are still some big relief pitchers on the board. Like the Pittsburgh thing, it makes even more sense now. So you can get both of those guys. I would be absolutely on board with that. But when we're looking at players flying off the board, and we're looking at, again, maybe it being a little bit more of a seller's market than we anticipated. But are we going to be mad at, the Toronto Blue Jays giving up maybe their 9th and 8th prospects instead of, their 11th and 12th prospects? Or are we going to be more mad that they didn't make a move and they were a little bit cheap at this trade deadline? I'm not saying that they're not going to make a move. They still have a full day up until 6 p.m. Eastern time to fire off and make some deals at the deadline. And there still is arms available, like I said, like Griffin Jacks, David Bednar, and you get Dennis Santana, also from Pittsburgh as well. Anthony Bender, you could call about Pete Fairbanks. I saw a report that Robert Suarez is available from the Padres. I don't know how likely that is, but they are shopping Dylan Cease. So the Padres are in this kind of weird spot where they don't want to pay a lot of guys money. Suarez doesn't have the biggest contract of all time. He is a relief pitcher, but there's crazier things to have happen with that franchise. So he might be available is a call that I would be making as well. Phil Maton, if you want as well. Helsley, I know is gone, but that's another option you have. So there is some high leverage guys still available. It's just the longer you wait and the more teams that are kind of knocked off the board, yes, that less competition. But at some point, 1 or 2 teams might not get the guy they want and might not be able to get that high leverage piece that he is able to push them over the edge. So I think, especially just kind of put Toronto Blue Jays fans' minds at ease, I think we do need to move probably earlier in the morning, hopefully only a couple hours after this podcast is released. I release it early, but I want to almost wake up to a Toronto Blue Jays transaction.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think my issue right now is that I expected 2 more trades, to be honest with you. I think in my head, 3 was the number. Depended on the guys, obviously, but 3 was my number. I thought that that's where this Blue Jays team was going to land, and that hasn't happened yet. And with less than a day, when you guys listen to this podcast, less than a day away from a trade being announced or until the trade deadline ends, we have not heard another trade announced from the Toronto Blue Jays. And maybe when you guys listen to this, maybe a trade did come in right in the morning. That's very possible. And we'd be live if that was the case. You guys would be seeing on the channel that I'm live, probably at the studio, be ready to go. But we have to take a look at this as of right now. And as of right now, I'm very not thrilled with what's been going on so far. And maybe Ross Atkins is just cooking in the booth and he's getting something ready to, roll out this big celebration of guys. But I just don't think that's it right now. I think he's being a little cautious with the amount he gives up and what he's willing to pay. We heard about the report early, Carter, that there were 2 guys this team wasn't willing to move off from, and that was Arjun Amala and Ricky Tiedemann. And if that's the case, who can you get? Those guys, to me, are the pieces that would have had to be spent here. That this was the time. If you were going to spend those guys, now is the time. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried.
Well, the issue is that you would have to pair a ton of your top prospects to get really anyone with years of control beyond this year. So I think the Toronto Blue Jays focus should be those type of rental players. Maybe you go up until 2026. Again, like those Pittsburgh boys, I'm going to keep bringing them up both until the 2026 options. So again, you might have to give up some, your Gage Stanifer at number 7, maybe a Cal Steven. There's going to be some guys that Blue Jays fans have been hearing about a lot recently that the Blue Jays are probably going to give up, and you're probably going to have to be okay with that. I, for one, am not going to glance at that whatsoever. So Arjun Amala, Trey Savage, these type of guys shouldn't really be traded unless you're going out and maybe you trade just an Arjun Amala and you get 3 of those guys. You get a Dennis Santana, you get a David Bednar, maybe another throw-in. I was going to say maybe Ke'Bryan Hayes, but he's gone as well. So I don't really see any of the top prospects being moved for any rental players. There'd have to be some players with control. But with the way the market has been set with that Johan Duran transaction, if a lot of these other guys with control go off the board, I think it's going to be a very tough asking price for the Toronto Blue Jays to match. So that's why, again, I think they will stick with the rentals. Again, still a ton available. Even if you don't want to go with the rental option, you got Kate Smith, who might be available if you want a rental. Kenley Jansen from the Angels. Again, Reed Detmers. That'd be a team that I'm calling as well. But the Angels kind of look like they're buying a little bit now. So I'm not sure if you will have Kenley Jansen on the board. I'm not sure why they're buying. But even if it's not from the Angels, still some teams that will be selling at this deadline that you still can call up.
The Angels are just doing whatever they can to put Mike Trout in the playoffs. They said, we're selling the farm here. Get this guy a playoff series. And you know what? I want to see it. I said if there's one other person that I want to have success besides the Toronto Blue Jays, it would be Mike Trout winning a World Series. That is one of my goals in life to see. And I just don't know. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But it might be the most sad thing in baseball to ever happen, that the best player of, our generation, Carter, growing up, doesn't ever win a World Series. It sucks. It's his own doing. He decided to stay with the Angels, and the Angels just don't want to spend, but it sucks. And I don't know. It's an interesting move from the Angels for sure.
They just still don't have starting pitching. They're not going to be able to compete with a lot of these AL teams, and the NL is significantly better than the AL in a lot of people's opinions. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like when you look at the wild card race now, the Jays still tied for first in the AL right now with the Tigers, the Astros still leading that division as well. So you got the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Mariners in a playoff spot right now. The Rangers are buying. The Rangers will be a team that I'm looking at down the stretch. Those are really the four teams. The Guardians, again, looking like they're probably going to sell. The Angels buying. That's the only other teams that are even remotely in the race. Maybe the Tampa Bay Rays are stingy and kind of hang around, but it looks like they are selling as well, with Danny Jansen being traded from that team. So not a lot of teams competing, but there are some good teams, at least when you look at the top four that I just mentioned. So again, just a little bit of a strange move from the Angels. But yeah, seeing Mike Trout in a series, just in a playoff series, would definitely be fun to watch. And maybe there's a little bit of an Angels upset. Maybe the Toronto Blue Jays win the American League. And hey, divisional round, you see the Los Angeles Angels roll in town. I think I'd be pretty excited to watch a series like that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about the trade deadline, obviously what we want to see from the final day and what we can expect. We'll talk about that in the third segment, but we got to talk about the game that was the Toronto Blue Jays getting a victory, not being swept by the Baltimore Orioles. We'll talk about all that coming right up after this break.
Today's episode is sponsored by 5-Hour Energy Transfusions. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and the lime flavors all to your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick and energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with your friends, that's one hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. A lot of the times, we're obviously so busy during the week, you want to maximize your weekends. So you're planning a very busy day. You got something in the morning, you got a commitment in the afternoon, and maybe you're going out at night as well. It's very tough to stay alive and alert in those moments, but especially as Canadians, we want to make the most out of our summers. We don't want to stay cooped up in our houses. So with the 5-Hour Energy Transfusion shot, whether you're on the golf course or just hanging out with your friends, hanging out with family, whatever your night brings you, 5-Hour Energy Transfusions are the perfect option to keep your night going and keep yourself energized. So golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors. Of course, the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse beverage without the go-to chasing down bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive $20 off your order. That offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. That code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you are meeting up with your friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today.
So, Carter, actually, just as you were in that break, Zach Lytle did get traded. So there you go. Cincinnati Reds, they got a guy they were looking at, I guess. So just thought I'd update that. But, Carter, we got to talk about the game that was. The Toronto Blue Jays avoid getting swept by the Baltimore Orioles in a game that gave me every emotion in the book, I think. It was up and down. It was angry, sad, happy, the whole ordeal. How did you feel, my man? 9-8 victory, Toronto Blue Jays.
You salvage a series, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. Not that happy with a 3 out of 4 loss to the Baltimore Orioles. But with all things considered, you look at the stretch that this team has gone on. They absolutely battled through the Giants, the Yankees, and the Tigers to get to this point. Then you go to Baltimore, and it is just the hottest atmosphere of all time. And of course, you have 2 day games as well during this stretch, and you have a doubleheader to top it all off. So the boys just looked exhausted at times in these games. And when you have George Springer out, you have Alejandro Kirk out, some middle of the order bats that usually help your team mash. It's going to be tough out there. So a tough series for the Blue Jays. I think the way this series was trajecting, I think you have to be kind of happy with a win in this last game. You're not going to have a lot of success against major league teams giving up 38 runs in a series. That's why I think you got to be kind of okay with taking one game in that series. It's just horrible starting pitching. The bullpen not very good as well. Some changes have been made. Some changes will continue, hopefully, to be made with the trade deadline. But overall, wild baseball game. Shout out to a bunch of players on this Toronto Blue Jays team. Bichette, Nathan Lucas, who came on, Sir Anthony Dominguez. Who am I forgetting in the seventh inning? Somebody saved Yariel Rodriguez's life.
Fisher.
Thank you, Brayden Fisher.
Yeah.
That is who I am looking for, because Yariel Rodriguez, again, we're going to have to talk about that performance. But overall, okay with the way, I guess, it ended, with all things considered, giving the Blue Jays the benefit of the doubt, especially with the way they've played for the last 2.5 months.
Yeah, and we have a lot to talk about from this series, I guess, as a whole, is that this team just underperformed, and that was going to happen eventually. There was going to be a stretch of games. But my biggest component to all of this is, how does this team now bounce back? Okay, you got over the Schneider, right? You got a win. Now, how do you continue on? How do you move on? Do you just continue the momentum of a victory, or do you slide right back down into a team that, wasn't having success? The pitching in totality, minus a couple of guys, was absolutely horrific this entire series. I mean, the starters were terrible. The bullpen wasn't good. Jose Berrios gives up 6 hits, 5 runs, but only 2 of them earned, obviously because of the play in the first inning. But huge shout out to Brayden Fisher. That guy was nuts. That was gross. Way to get out of it. Sir Anthony Dominguez, you said it, had a great outing, and Jeff Hoffman comes in to record the save, and that, I think, is his 25th of the year as well. So shout out Jeff Hoffman. They got the job done. But really, all of the credit, or most of it, has to go to Nathan Lucas. I mean, what an absolute day. I was pretty sad for Sanchez as well, because he would have had his first big league home run. But Cedric Mullins, that I can't even say it on this podcast, just a pain in my ass, that guy. Robbing a home run at the wall off a guy that would have had his first one. It would have sparked this team even more. It would have been awesome to see. Not so much. Cedric Mullins, the Blue Jays killer, apparently.
Yeah, in my notes I have Cedric Mullins robbed us of history. So that's what happened with Ali Sanchez. Could have been, like you said, his first career home run, but not today. It says Cedric Mullins. Makes me miss Daulton Varsho a little bit. We haven't really seen that pizzazz in center field recently whatsoever. Like, Mel Straw's solid, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't really make those flashy plays, which is just sometimes fun as a fan to make. In the grand scheme of things, I'd rather have Mel Straw make every routine play, and the a little bit tougher ones, and maybe not make those sprawling diamond catches. But a lot of the time, he just reads the ball so well, he doesn't really have to do that. So, I'll get my wish pretty soon, because Daulton Varsho probably should be back for this upcoming series against the Kansas City Royals over the weekend. So, excited to see that. But just back on this baseball game here, kind of just going off the top. It's just not a good start whatsoever. You get down 3-0 immediately in the first inning. Ernie Clement has by far his worst defensive game of the year. In that first inning, Gunnar Henderson hits a ball to him. Gunnar Henderson's relatively quick, and it's not the hardest hit ball of all time. So Ernie rushes the throw, just a horrible throw, though, like never really online. Throws it directly into left field. You get runners in scoring position. Then Jose Berrios throws a sinker on the inside part of the plate. Ryan O'Hearn probably wants that either more inside or probably lower. The setup was low and inside. Doesn't really get it low. And Ryan O'Hearn absolutely launches that into the right field seats. Not a very fun start to that baseball game. But the game of Miles Straw, we almost went in this history there. This guy almost having a cycle home run to left field, single up the middle, a backside double off the wall as well. So I was one of the first guys I wanted to shout out in this baseball game, because Miles Straw, when that trade happened, not a lot of people were happy about it. We weren't that happy about it. We understood the vision, But maybe the vision in totality was just to have Miles Straw play for this baseball team and add to some of the magic that the Toronto Blue Jays have been in 2025.
Yeah, and this is just another game, right, where role players are doing not just their jobs, but more than their jobs, right? Nathan Lucas, Miles Straw, even Alex Sanchez, you got to give him credit for that swing. That's a great swing that probably should have been a home run. It's all these guys doing little pieces and doing more than we ask of them. And when guys can come in and do that, you can understand why this team is having success. And this is a team that's going to get Alejandro Kirk, Daulton, Varsho, George Springer, all back in the lineup, probably pretty close to this weekend. Maybe, I don't know if Kirk's quite going to be back for game one. It'll be close. Either game one.
I don't think he'll probably be back. I don't think he'll be back in the weekend. I think he'll probably be back for that Rocky series on the following Monday.
You think?
Maybe you get him for that last game, but I think with the timelines, it's probably very unlikely you see him in the weekend.
Because it was a 7-game and he got injured, or 7-game day IL and he got injured when? Would that have been the Monday game?
I think that was the first game of the Orioles series.
Yeah, so you're right.
I think
probably
that
Monday.
adds up, but yeah, there's just unlikely that you will see him over the weekend.
But anyway, you get all of these guys back within the next series or two, and this is a huge, huge boost to this lineup. It's like you're making trades. That's what's happening here. You're getting your powerful lineup that's been so successful all season back together. And obviously, I mean, you don't get our boy Santander back, but that's a guy that I just don't think will play again this season. Personally, I could be very wrong, but that's what the timeline's looking like, or maybe be late into the season.
With Alejandro Kirk, it happened Saturday, so we've sped up our days a little bit there. But so maybe for the weekend, but again, with concussions and just with what we've heard from Alejandro Kirk, I think you take the safer route, especially with where you're at with your schedule and with the way Tyler Heineman's playing. I mean, this guy's just continuing to get the barrel on the ball, even though he's swinging at one of the lowest swing speeds, seems like in all of baseball, especially from the eye test. Doesn't look like he's, firing the bat through the zone necessarily, but it's been fun to watch. So yeah, with the way this catching tandem with Alejandro Kirk and Alex Sanchez, maybe not the most eye-popping names that are on the sheet right now, but they aren't playing bad baseball in their very short span of helping out here for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, Carter, and if there's anything to do with concussions, I'll refer to you, my man. You know better than me on concussions, so I'll trust your judgment there. But just as we continue on, this team, overall, the pitching, we can go back throughout this entire series, and these starting pitchers need to be better. That's it. You got to set your team up to have more success. You can't burn through bullpen arms like this all season long. And they were good for the last 2 weeks to 3 weeks, even a month. This team has been very solid. Their starting pitching has been very good. But you go on a little bit of a slump here, and you can see some of the holes that, hey, if this guy doesn't have a good day, this team can be in a hole very quickly.
It's crazy how things can change in the game of baseball. A couple weeks ago, people not really talking about starting pitching whatsoever. We kind of took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit because you have 5 guys that you do trust. But if there's one blow-up start, if one of these guys, God forbid, gets hurt, there's a massive hole. Like, it's Easton Lucas, it's Lazaro Estrada. Like, the savior might come back at Alek Manoah at some point. But how much do you really trust that? Last time he was pitching, he was kind of struggling again to find his footing. Really hasn't been the same since that 2023 season where everything kind of blew up. And now he just had Tommy John surgery. I know the velo is kind of back to where it was before. But that's a lot to ask from a guy that hasn't really thrown baseballs consistently. I guess since it would be 2024. But even then, like going back to his 2023 season when things really didn't go well, this guy's a wild card. So I'm not sure if you want to rely on this guy solely down the stretch. So you got the trade deadline or you got kind of from within, but it hasn't necessarily worked out that well from within. So hopefully they do add a starting pitcher at this deadline, even if it is even like a Miles Michaelis, like a guy with a 5 ERA that doesn't necessarily have to be the saving grace for this baseball team. It's just kind of another option at the end of the day. Maybe like the Mitch White trade that we saw a couple years ago, just to give this starting rotation some stability.
Well, and it's not even a stability. I mean, it is, but in regards to that too, it's, hey, these guys are dead. Maybe we give them a break day, right? Where we throw somebody else and be able to do that because, yeah, it happened for a game like this, a day like this where you have a double header, but you can't rely on Easton Lucas and Estrada to pick that up and try to get you a decent game. It's just not going to happen because they're not
we also saw
starters.
Sorry to interrupt, but we also saw Kevin Gausman on an extra day of rest with 6 days rest go out and throw 10, sent us 10 strikeouts over 6 innings.
Yeah.
So like this is a guy that does, again, not every single week necessarily when he has these mixed in days where he does get 6 days rest. Usually he goes out the day after and throws up a dominant performance. So that is something that could be utilized, especially down the stretch where Kevin Gausman has been throwing every 5 days consistently. Would be nice for a couple times once in a while for a lot of these guys that have been eating a ton of innings to get that extra day. So if you can just get eat some innings from anybody, which again, that can be additions from the bullpen, it can be additions from the starting rotation, and it also could just be guys performing up to expectations or maybe even over expectations, getting that extra inning from time to time, getting that extra batter. The more that an individual can do for this team helps the team a whole lot in the big picture. Every out counts, and that we will be counting these outs, especially with the round of baseball this Toronto Blue Jays team expects to play down the stretch with a lot of stressful games upcoming, a lot of meaningful games upcoming. So they're going to have their best stuff, especially if they want to hold their lead at the top of the AL East.
Yeah, and we'll see what can happen, right? This trade deadline still moves to be made. What is this team going to do? We're going to talk all about that in the next segment coming right up after this short break. Carter, we've talked about it before, right? That moves at the deadline can either spark your team further, or you can sort of start to see your team fall off. And right now, with the one move the Toronto Blue Jays have made, I think it's a good move, but it's a far cry from what we expected, I think, in this trade deadline. Still today to go. Still till 6 Eastern. Can this team make enough moves with what is available to still have a successful trade deadline to you?
Absolutely, they can. They go out and get another 2 bullpen arms. That's where I'm at. You need 2 more. You know, you got Seranthony Dominguez. We're seeing some holes within the bullpen. Maybe a longer man would be nice as well. A guy that can throw multiple innings because you see the holes in the starting rotation. And you do have Alek Manoah coming back, but that's not necessarily a guy that I want to rely on. But I think the bullpen is going to be the biggest thing, especially when you get to a playoff scenario. You know, a lot of these guys, Jose Berrios, Kevin Gausman, even Chris Bassitt, you throw in here, maybe a Max Scherzer. I'm confident that a lot of these guys can give us 4 for sure innings, maybe 5 innings. So if you get 4 or 5 guys that can take over the last 4 innings of a baseball game, and maybe you get 6 or 7 guys with all these additions coming at this trade deadline, that is a pretty good way that you can attack opposing hitters, not letting opposing teams get too comfortable with one pitcher, just having dog after dog after dog come out in the bullpen. So I think there's definitely still is enough arms to do that. But Ross Atkins might have to get a little bit more aggressive. He might have to start throwing a couple more chips on the table to give it just that little extra push to get one of these deals done.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't necessarily know what I'm expecting. I think in my head that I wanted this to be a blockbuster, not a blockbuster trade deadline, but something that really moves the needle, shows me, and maybe it's the 2015-16 of it all for me, right? Where these moves were nasty, and you could see that it made this team exponentially better. I don't know if that's in the cards at all for this team. I don't think there's going to be a move that makes this team, or one guy that comes in and makes the team exponentially better. There are going to be little, smaller moves. I don't want to say it's little because some of these moves are going to help this team, but it's not going to be the headline busting trade here. And I think that saddens me because I would love to see them add one huge piece that, you know, it lights a fire under everybody and says, wow, the Blue Jays are terrifying after the trade deadline. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's not the DNA of this team. The DNA of this team is a by committee approach, everybody doing their job. And I think Ross Atkins sees that. And so if that's the case, I think, yeah, you can only expect maybe a bullpen arm. Maybe that's it. I don't think it's going to be 2, to be honest with you. I think we'll be lucky to see 1. I think there will be 1 bullpen arm addition and then maybe something else thrown in as well. That's sort of where I'm at. I think for people expecting blockbuster deals from the Blue Jays, and they're going to say the Blue Jays failed after this trade deadline because they didn't make the blockbuster, I don't think that's what they were aiming to do here.
Yeah, if people were expecting that 2015 deadline with the David Price, the Troy Tulowitzki. I think, like, you summed it up pretty well. I don't think that was necessarily the plan of this front office. That wasn't the expectation from this front office. It was to make additions in the bullpen, get those rental pieces, and really focus on this year. The only issue with this by committee approach is that every time we get to the playoffs, it happens every single year. What do we see with this that leads to success, especially long term with a lot of these deep playoff runs? It's the home run ball. It's the home run power. It's hitting the ball out of the ballpark. So you see the increased skill in pitching. It's a lot harder to get these rallies going. It's a lot harder to square up baseballs more consistently. A lot of the time, the best you can do is just get one really good swing on a baseball, maybe draw the odd walk, maybe get the infield hit, have some gritty at-bats, which this team can definitely do. And we have seen that. But we are still lacking a little bit of that home run power. I don't know how you necessarily address this at this point. You're going to have to kind of go in, I think, and just hopefully get this by committee approach to work. Maybe you get Anthony Santander there back. You get Daulton Varsho to ignite some fire in his lineup. Vladdy figures it out. So you have some options from within. But clearly, again, when you look at the bullpen, you look at the pitching, one move for sure has to be made. I'm set on the two bullpen arms. I'm not going to accept one. I need two bullpen arms for this staff, especially with the injury history we have seen. If you have one or two guys go down, we're in the exact same spot that we were. It's like we didn't even have a trade deadline. So that's why I think you got to, again, if you have to overpay just a little bit and you have to make maybe one, I guess, too many moves. Again, I don't think you can make too many pitching moves, especially if they are effective arms. So that's another thing as well, is I don't want the Toronto Blue Jays to take these massive risks like guys on like Zach Gallen, like the Sandy Alcantara's. You need a surefire guy that has been consistent this year that can give you outs in a big moment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Stay tuned for a lot more coming today. We will be live if anything does happen. So make sure you guys do have that bell. You are subscribed so you guys get notified on the YouTube channel when we are live. I will be there trying to break it all down for you. See if it was a success. If it was not, we'll break it all down. Thank you guys for tuning in every single day to these episodes. It has been a wild ride so far and only more craziness to come from this Toronto Blue Jays 2025 season. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Go follow us on all the other platforms. We'll be back with you guys breaking down the full trade deadline recap coverage tomorrow, plus a series preview looking into the weekend. Carter, before we kick out of here, anything else from you?
Yeah, I got two things quickly. Won't go into depth on them at all. Bichette had this probably the second worst swing of the season. The first one was the last swing of game 2. But it was this pitch before he sends a single right up the middle to get a 2-run single in the middle innings. So shout out to Bichette there. And just quickly, just something on Yariel Rodriguez. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it. I think one of the worst outings we've seen from Yariel Rodriguez. I don't think I can remember a time in recent history over the last couple months or so that we've seen Yariel Rodriguez struggle with command this often and this much. Through 10 strikes and 14 balls in 24 pitches, through 4 more balls and strikes, all over the strike zone. When he was set up low and inside, it was high and away. When he was set up high, it went low. When it was inside, it went outside. Just no command from Yariel Rodriguez whatsoever. So the last question I was just going to pose to you was, are you worried about Yariel, and just what did you see from him in this start?
No, it wasn't good. But again, Yariel's been so good all season. It was his command. When he has his command, which he has all year, he's been very effective. It just didn't seem like he was at his peak today. So it is what it is. I did want to drop this, Carter, just as well. Sorry, something came across the wire here. Ramon Urias heading to Houston per Jeff Passan. So there you go. There's another one. Interesting move there. See how it plays out. A lot of moves being made, and so they'll continue. I'm not going to be able to update you guys all night because I will be in bed hopefully within the next half hour. Carter, I guess we'll just have to sit here and wait. Like everybody else, we're just going to have to sit and wait for stuff to come down the wire and see if the Blue Jays do end up having a successful trade deadline. As always, thank you guys for listening, like I said before, and we'll talk to you guys hopefully later today.